Can you imagine a man in holy white robes, holding a sword high above his head? A spiritual leader, commanding thousands of soldiers in the heat of battle? This isn't a scene from a fantasy movie. This is real history. Over 500 years ago, the head of the Catholic Church himself rode into battle, clad in armor, carrying a weapon and leading an army in the name of God. His name was Pope Julius II, often called the most feared pope in history. He was a man who truly believed that to save the Church, he had to fight for it, literally. This is the shocking, untold story of the Pope who went to war, the man the world would come to know as the Warrior Pope. To understand Julius II, you first have to understand the chaotic world he was born into. The 15th century was a brutal and turbulent time for the Church. Widespread corruption, political assassinations, and constant scandal had deeply stained the papacy's reputation. His predecessor, Pope Alexander VI of the infamous Borgia family, was notorious for his corruption and for fathering several illegitimate children. During this era, the papacy often felt less about prayer and spiritual guidance and more about ruthless politics and the accumulation of power. Meanwhile, Europe's greatest powers, France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire, were locked in a constant struggle for control over Italy. The Vatican's own lands, the Papal States, were shrinking as local lords rebelled and foreign armies invaded. Its influence was fading fast. The Church didn't just need a preacher, it needed a warrior. Enter Giuliano della Rovere. He was no ordinary priest. Born in 1443, he was fiercely ambitious, politically cunning, and intensely independent. He strategically rose through the ranks of the Church with a single, unshakable goal: to become pope and restore its lost power and glory. But his journey to the top was perilous. He frequently clashed with the powerful and dangerous Borgia family, which eventually forced him into exile for his own safety. Yet, even while living in exile, Giuliano didn't stay quiet. He was a master strategist, patiently building alliances with influential kings and generals across Europe, planning his return. When Pope Alexander VI finally died in 1503, Giuliano seized his long-awaited moment. Through a combination of brilliant diplomacy and sheer force of will, he was elected pope. He took the name Julius II, and with that, the age of the warrior pope had officially begun. Most popes start their reign by preaching peace and calling for unity. Julius II started his by recruiting soldiers. He immediately set about rebuilding the Swiss Guard into an elite fighting force, established new military alliances, and poured the Church's vast wealth into acquiring weapons and strengthening fortifications. His mission was clear: to reclaim all the papal territories that had been lost to rebellious Italian lords and invading foreign armies. When his critics called him unholy, accusing him of betraying his spiritual duties, Julius reportedly replied, "The Lord gave me this sword to defend his Church." His first major target was the rebellious city of Bologna, which had declared its independence from papal rule. In 1506, Pope Julius II did something that shocked the entire Christian world. He didn't just command his army from the safety of Rome, he led it himself. Wearing shining silver armor beneath his papal robes, he mounted a war horse and rode at the head of his troops, marching directly into enemy territory. Eyewitnesses at the time wrote about the incredible sight of the Pope, then in his 60s, riding fearlessly among his men. The sheer audacity of a pope leading an army into battle was enough to terrify his enemies into submission. The city of Bologna surrendered without a single fight. In that moment, Julius proved he was no ordinary pope. He was a general, blessed by faith and fueled by an unquenchable thirst for power. But this victory only made Julius hungrier for more. He now began to dream of uniting all of Italy under the Church's direct control, creating a true Vatican empire. He turned his attention to the powerful Republic of Venice, then to France, and even clashed with the Holy Roman Empire. He forged and broke alliances with dizzying speed, keeping his enemies constantly off balance. They started calling him Il Papa Terribile, the terrible pope. But his own soldiers had a different name for him, Father Commander. At the very same time he was waging these relentless wars, Julius commissioned some of the most iconic and breathtaking works of art in human history. He hired Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and began the ambitious project of rebuilding St. Peter's Basilica. He wanted the Vatican to be not just powerful, but eternal. However, power always comes at a price. Julius' constant wars were draining the Vatican's treasury and had angered the very European kings he once called his allies. France, his former partner, turned against him. So did the Holy Roman Emperor. Soon, Rome itself trembled as enemy armies surrounded it. The Pope, who had once led armies to conquer cities, now faced the threat of invasion himself. Yet, even with his back against the wall, Julius refused to surrender. In a brilliant diplomatic move, he called for a Holy League, uniting England, Spain, and Switzerland against the French invaders. Against all odds, the aging Pope triumphed once again, driving his enemies out of Italy. Pope Julius II died in 1513 at the age of 69. His body was laid to rest in the very Vatican that he had rebuilt, surrounded by the timeless art, magnificent architecture, and formidable power that he had fought so hard to create. To some, he was a hero who single-handedly saved the church from collapse. To others, he was a ruthless tyrant who twisted faith into a justification for war. But even his harshest critics have to admit, no pope before or since has ever dared to do what Julius did. A man of faith who fought like a king, a spiritual leader who rebuilt the church with blood and iron. This was Pope Julius II, the warrior pope, one of history's most dangerous holy men. If you love hearing the incredible stories that history often tries to hide, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.